After that, we have two of the authors that are featured in our first issue of the Font, reading some of their material, so that you get an idea of at least a couple of the different types of things that we're doing with the Font. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy their short stories as well, very entertaining. And hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end for question time, and then after that the closing ceremony with the dances and fireworks. So, let me tell you how the idea came to fruition. I was reading the New Yorker, and they had an article in it about the Bellevue Literary Review, which probably some of you people who read literary reviews often might be aware of. Has anybody come across that one? It's been going for about 10, 11 years now. And it was started by a doctor who works at the Bellevue Hospital. It's the oldest one in the States. He decided that people in the medical profession had a lot of interesting stories to tell about what they do. And so he started this literary review as a place where they can tell their stories. And they quickly discovered that it has a very kind of broad appeal, that everybody has a story somehow connected to health and well-being or medicine or something. So they started, it became very popular, and they're getting lots of submissions. They now apparently get many times more submissions than the Lancet does. And it got me thinking that language teachers have a lot of good stories too, and I enjoy listening to and reading the stories of people in our profession. And it occurred to me that, you know, this theme is quite a broad one as well, that everybody here, who teaches languages here? Who teaches a language? If you haven't, who's learned a second language? Everybody else, right? So everybody's got a story to do with that process of trying to learn, trying to grapple with a new language, or teaching a second language. So I started the Font as a home for those stories, as a place where people can reflect on and think about and write about and share their experiences teaching and learning languages. What's it about? In the same way as the Bellevue is quite broadly connected to health and medicine, this is also kind of broadly connected to teaching and learning languages, or being a language learner or teacher in Japan or abroad. And we're already getting submissions from people in other countries, teaching languages in other countries, telling their stories as well. I think this audience know what I'm talking about with literary reviews or literary journals. When I've talked about it to other groups, people come up afterwards and say, oh, I've got a paper I'm writing on particular kind of methodology or some research I've been doing, and I have to say, no, that's not the kind of thing we do. But I think this audience knows what I'm talking about. It's not academic papers or empirical research. It's about, it takes the creative literary perspective on what it is that we do. And it's an online journal, and it's published twice a year at this stage, in the fall and in the spring. So what kind of writing? Pretty broadly anything. Short stories, creative non-fiction, essays. We have an anecdotes page I'll tell you more about in a minute. We have a poetry page as well. Any poets here? Great. We also have some cartoons, and we've recently added art. Gareth's going to be our visual arts editor. I wasn't intending to do, I couldn't really see how visual arts could come into language teaching, telling those stories, but we had a couple of submissions of really interesting paintings on that theme, so we thought, well, why not include that? Who's it for? It's for people teaching abroad, people teaching languages, people learning languages, people who have had the joy and the frustration of trying to learn or pick up a language abroad.
James, what's the picture for?
What's the picture from? Actually, it's got something to do with negotiation of peace after the... I actually had to put a little patch over the military thing on his shoulder. Keen eye, keen eye. About what? About anything connected to that theme. It's very broad. I presented on this to a kind of a younger audience at a conference, and one came up to me afterwards and he said, "How can you write something interesting about teaching English? I can't think of anything." And off he went scratching his head, and then he came up to me later and he said, "I thought of something. I write poetry," he said, and I had a student who wrote an essay for me saying that the two most favourite things in the world were Disneyland, of course, and less obviously Dostoevsky. So he'd written a poem about this student called Disneyland and Dostoevsky, because she liked Disneyland and Dostoevsky. Fantastic, that's great. Send it to us. I hope that one's coming soon. I can't wait to see that one. So it's pretty broad. Let me tell you about the sections that we've got in it. We've got the longer prose up to about 5,000 words. I forgot to mention also book extracts. Steve, who will be reading it, we published a part of his book that is particularly connected to language teaching, seeing the whole thing through the eyes of a Japanese kid who has a foreign language teacher come to his village. You'll be hearing more of that in a minute. So we've got the longest section. We've got poetry. That's a gag for the poets there. Is it too small?
No, I read it. Yeah, they took a bit of time.
Yeah.
I might miss the punchline.
Do you want to go back?
No.
We have a section for short anecdotes, just 50 or 100 words of a funny thing happened when I was, travelling and trying to use a language. Funny things do happen. You get words mixed up and end up putting your foot in it. So we've got a lot of interesting little vignettes and funny stories in that section. Cartoons as well. That's probably too small. If you're interested in that one, have a look at the website. We have a page for author biographies, so you can find out a little bit about the people who are writing for the font. You can see it at the very top. We also have a section for what's on, so I get information about writers' workshops and conferences like this, anything that would be of interest to people like yourselves. I post it up there.
But you publish twice a year?
That's right. So, yeah, it's not...
You just have a
put things well in advance, there's a thing in 3 months' time or 4 months' time. Oh, okay, thank you. We'll probably also have a column in the TLT, the language teacher. They've asked us to submit a proposal to have a regular column in that of our stuff. So we're looking for anybody who's interested in joining the team, editors, organisers, if there's any particularly techie people, I'd love to have some of that kind of help. You can send submissions to the font, submissions at thefontjournal.com. We also have a Facebook page. I've got a flyer you can grab at the end, or you can give me your email as well before you go, and I will send you our newsletter. Let me hand over now to Gareth, who's going to talk a little bit about creative writing and research.
Thanks, James. Can I ask you to pass this
Yep.
around? Good morning. One of the things James talked to me about as we kind of had conversations about his journal is the idea that, enjoying creative writing, enjoy people's imaginative writing, but also wanting to learn from it, that James felt that he can learn things maybe about his teaching practice, about his own way of doing things through reading other people's, not academic writing or pedagogical writing, but essentially through their creative writing. can still learn and know